My mom said it was just a family meeting. Her voice on the phone was calm, almost sweet, the way it used to sound, when she wanted something from me, but didn't want to scare me off yet. She said it was important, said everyone would be there, said we needed to clear the air after months of tension. I almost didn't go. Something in my chest felt tight the moment she said the words family meeting. But I told myself I was being dramatic. Families fight. Families fix things. At least that's what I had been taught to believe. I arrived at the house 10 minutes early. The driveway was already full of cars that didn't belong there. Sleek black sedans. Tinted windows. I paused before getting out, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror, trying to calm the strange feeling crawling up my spine. I told myself again that I was overthinking. Then I walked inside. The living room was quiet. Too quiet. Everyone was already seated. My mother, my stepfather, my older brother and his wife, and two men I had never seen before, both in suits, folders resting neatly on their laps. The moment I saw them, I understood. This wasn't a family meeting. This was an ambush. One of the men stood up immediately and introduced himself as a lawyer. The other nodded politely but didn't smile. My mother didn't look at me. She stared at her hands like she was the victim in all this. My brother leaned back with his arms crossed, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. No one offered me a seat. I stood there, heart pounding, while the lawyer explained why I was there. They wanted me to sign documents. Documents that would transfer everything my late father had, left me into a family trust. Documents that would conveniently put my brother in control. Documents that would leave me with nothing but a polite thank you and a forced smile. I asked one simple question. Why wasn't I told about this? My mother finally looked up. Her eyes were cold. Not angry, not sad, just calculating. She said I had become difficult. She said I was selfish. She said the family needed stability, and I was a risk. She said my father would have wanted it this way. That's when something inside me clicked. I realized this had been planned for months, maybe years. Every argument, every ignored call, every moment they made me feel like an outsider in my own family. This was the endgame. Strip me quietly, legally, cleanly. The lawyer slid the papers across the table and pointed to the signature lines. He explained how easy it would be if I cooperated, how unpleasant it could become if I didn't. My brother finally spoke, his voice dripping with fake concern. He said it was for the best. He said I'd thank them one day. He said fighting would only make things worse for me. I looked around the room and saw it clearly. They didn't see me as family anymore. They saw me as an obstacle. I refused to sign. The mood shifted instantly. My stepfather raised his voice. My brother leaned forward. My mother started crying, telling me I was tearing the family apart. One of the lawyers mentioned court. Another mentioned how expensive it could get. They thought fear would break me. Instead, I smiled. I counted slowly under my breath. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I told them something they didn't expect. I said, I came alone. But I didn't come unprepared. The room froze. My mother's tears stopped instantly. My brother's smirk disappeared. One of the lawyers frowned and asked what I meant. I told them I had already spoken to my own attorney. I told them every conversation, every message, every sudden change in behavior had been documented. I told them the inheritance clause they were relying on had conditions they clearly hadn't read carefully enough. That was the first crack in their confidence. The second crack came when I stood up and said I wasn't signing anything. Not today. Not ever. And if they tried to force it, I would make sure everyone knew exactly how this family meeting was set up. I told them courts don't like deception. Judges don't like ambushes. And reputations don't survive secrets very well. No one spoke. The lawyer cleared his throat and said they would revisit the matter. My mother avoided my eyes again. My brother stared at the floor like a child who'd been caught stealing. I walked out without saying goodbye. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I worked. I reviewed documents my father had left behind. Emails, notes, letters he never sent. And in those pages I found the truth. He knew this would happen. He had planned for it. He had protected me in ways my family never imagined. What they thought was a weakness, my distance, my silence, had actually been my shield. By morning, everything had changed. They thought the meeting was the end of the story. It was only the beginning. By morning, the phone started ringing. I ignored it at first. I already knew who it was. My mother, then my brother, then numbers I didn't recognize. Messages followed. Long ones, short ones, angry ones, pleading ones. I didn't open a single message. I was too busy doing what they never expected me to do, reading everything my father had prepared for me years ago. My father wasn't a loud man. He didn't argue. He observed. He noticed patterns. He noticed how my brother was always favored, how my stepfather slowly inserted himself into every financial decision, how my mother justified everything with the word family. And quietly, without telling anyone, he built safeguards. Legal ones, financial ones, unbreakable ones. Buried in a folder labeled "For later" was a trust structure that activated only if anyone tried to pressure me into transferring assets. The moment I refused to sign anything and documented the coercion, the clause triggered automatically. Ownership didn't move away from me. It consolidated. Everything my father had set aside accounts, properties, investments locked into my name alone, with strict restrictions preventing false transfers. They thought lawyers were weapons. My father had already won the war. By noon, my lawyer confirmed it. Calm voice, almost amused. He said, "They can't touch a single thing. Not now. Not ever." He also said something else that made me sit down. The lawyers my family brought? They had crossed a line. Misrepresentation, coercion, bad faith negotiation. If I wanted, this could turn ugly for them very fast. That's when my brother showed up at my door. He didn't knock confidently like he used to. He hovered, hesitated. When I opened the door, he looked smaller somehow. He started talking immediately, tripping over his words, saying it was all a misunderstanding. He said Mom was scared. He said they were just trying to protect the family. He asked me to come back and talk like adults. I asked him one question. "Did you know?" He didn't answer. That was all I needed. By evening, the tone of the messages changed. The threats disappeared. The legal language vanished. What replaced it was panic. My mother cried on voicemail, saying she didn't mean it. My stepfather sent a message pretending he was never involved. My brother sent 3 apologies in a row, each softer than the last. They had finally spoken to their lawyers. They had finally realized they weren't in control. A week later, I received a formal letter. Not a demand. An apology. Carefully worded. Signed. They wanted mediation. They wanted peace. They wanted to move forward. Funny how those words only appear when power shifts. I declined. I didn't do it out of revenge. I did it out of clarity. I understood something then that took me years to learn. People who plan to take from you don't panic when you say no. They panic when they realize you were never powerless to begin with. They don't fear confrontation. They fear exposure. Months passed. The family stopped calling. The house where the meeting happened was sold quietly. My brother moved states. My mother sent one last message on my birthday. I never replied. And for the first time in my life, I felt light. No guilt. No fear. No need to explain myself. They thought that meeting would end me. They thought pressure would break me. They thought silence meant weakness. What they never understood was this: I had already won long before I walked into that room.